Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome. We appreciate each and every one of you. Today we are going to make broth. Now we don't have a particular way to make the broth, just adding all the extra vegetables that we have and the bones and things that we've saved. We have put them in the freezer, so we will have those out, and the broth that we have frozen, we'll add it all together to make this wonderful broth. But right now we have onions and celery and carrots in here. So you're going to ask, why did we leave the brown of the onions on? My husband asked as well. Because that is what's going to give you your golden, rich, deep coloring. You don't put all of them with the peelings in it, but you do put some in there, just enough to make the coloring the way that we like it, dark and rich. And then we have our frozen chicken broth, and then we have our bones. We have 3 big packs of bones. There's ham, there's rotisserie chicken bones. So we'll be adding all of those in here and showing you the process, and we will be sharing this with you and telling you a little more about it so that you can make your own bone broth. It's so much more healthier and richer than store-bought broth. We will probably be letting ours cook for 2 to 3 days on a simmering feature, so we'll talk a little more about that soon. Alright, so as I was saying, we do have the added a little bit of the lunch today chicken and the other vegetables, and we're getting ready to go ahead and add the bones. So we're going to, and you can see my husband being silly today, but we're going to go ahead and add the ham bone. This was from March of this year that we just put in the freezer. I'm just going to add that in there to the vegetables. And then we have some more bones for broth here as well. This here is
from the body we chopped up.
Do what, honey?
It's from the body that we chopped up.
Oh Lord, no, it's not. Don't trust on that, dear. Let me turn this off because it's kind of glaring. There we go. We're going to go ahead and add the Easter ham bones. That was a Falter's ham, one of our favorite hams. One day, maybe we'll be able to have our own to harvest, but right now, we'll stick with Falter's. And then we have a leftover rotisserie chicken and bones. Now, when you're making broth, you can use all one bone. If you want to make a beef broth, of course, you want to just use beef. If you want to have a pork broth, you just want to use the pork. This is just going to be a regular all-around broth that can be used for anything that you want. I'm going to go ahead and add, we have some already made chicken and turkey broth. So I'm going to add that in there. We don't need the extra fat. Then go ahead and add the second bag. Now you don't have to add broth. I'm only adding broth because we already have it and I want to make room in the freezer. As you can see, you're going to need a really large pot. So we have the broth in here. Then you want to add any seasonings that you have. I went out to the garden, the apartment garden, and got some fresh parsley and thyme. I'm going to go ahead and rinse those off. And then just toss them in there. You don't even have to break them up. I'm going to break them up just a little bit, but you don't have to. Just to relieve some of that flavor. Spread that around there. Wash my hands. So we added thyme for some flavoring. We added parsley. And I'm going to put in some sage. This was also from our garden last year, but we dehydrated. And we're going to add some of that for some flavoring. You don't need a lot because it is really strong. Just enough to enhance the broth. And then of course you're going to want your pepper and your little bit of salt, not too much, because there'll be plenty of salt with the natural juices of the broth and the ham bones and things like that. So we added some pepper, and then we're going to add some, we're using pink Himalayan salt. Let me get the thing out here. I'm going to go ahead and use this. It's the Himalayan salt. A little healthier for you than iodine salt, but if that's all you have, use it. So we're going to put this back up here so we can refill it, because I have a big package that I can refill it with. And now we're going to add water. As you see, I don't do any measurements. Just enough water that it can cook. Because this broth is going to, this frozen broth that I got out of the freezer is going to give you liquid as well. So I added about 3 16-ounces of water. And what I'll do is set this on the stove on simmer and cover it. And this will cook for, well, some people do it for 24 hours. Some people do it for 48 hours. Some people do it for 36 hours. I've actually saw on other YouTube channels that people have actually simmered their broth for a week. So just the longer you simmer it, the richer flavor it is. So we're going to go ahead and put this on simmer, and I'll bring you back periodically, let you see how it's going, and if we need to add a little more water we will, but I think we're fine for now. We got enough water in there to let the broth melt down. I'm going to go ahead and cover, move it over to the large cooking area here, and get that on simmer. Alright, so we have everything in our pot and having it come up to a boil. And we are getting ready to add 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. Now some people will add lemon juice, and that's fine too. We prefer the apple cider vinegar. That will also bring up your acidity level so that when you go to can it, the acidity level will be where it needs to be. So for this big stock pot, you're going to add 2 tablespoons. have it. Add it in there. And then we're going to add one more. And that should do it for our acidity level. And it'll bring out the flavor and help break down the bones, because we are making a bone broth for this recipe. Go ahead and put that away. You can make your own applesauce or apple cider vinegar, sorry, as well, using your apple peels. That might be something that I do in the fall when apples are in season. So I'm going to go ahead and stir this a little bit. See all that goodness. Wow. So we're going to bring this to a boil, and once I bring it to a boil, I'll bring you back and show you how it's looking, and we'll talk a little bit more about the broth. Okay, so as you can see, it is coming to a boil. Been mixing it up. It is smelling awesome in here. And it hasn't even been boiling that long, and it's already filling the house with beautiful smell. So we go ahead and stir that up, and right now I'm going to turn this down to simmering and cover it back up, and from this point it will sit here simmering for the next 24 to 36 hours. I'll check it periodically, make sure that nothing's sticking, which it shouldn't. But yeah, that's what we're gonna do. And the next time that you'll see me is when we are straining it and getting all the veggies and the meats and bones, whatever's left over, out, and straining it into a different pot and getting it ready to be canned. Okay, so it has been 36 hours. Originally I thought that we would do the 24-hour broth, but then I realized that the bones were really big in this broth, so I went ahead and did the 36-hour broth. So I took it off of the heat this morning, and this is what we have. And as you can see, it's all broken down. Looks beautiful. So now it is time to strain all of the veggies and meat and bones out, and I have a little setup here with the strainer and another pot. Now, this pot might not be big enough for the juice that we have. I may have to use two. So I'm going to go ahead and start that process. I'm going to pull my hair back first because we don't want any hair. Pull my hair back, and then we'll get to the process of straining all of this deliciousness. Alright, so I got the hair pulled back, and I moved the pot over here to this side of the sink, next to the setup I have here, and then I have the trash can down below. That way I can throw away all the excess heavier pieces. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm using a ladle. You could use something a little bigger, but I like to take my time and get all the stuff out of there. I won't do this for the whole pot. I'll just do this to get most of the bigger things and the vegetables out. Once I get it to a point that the pot is not so heavy, because it is really heavy, I will go ahead and pour the rest in. So I will bring you back when I get done getting all of these beautiful vegetable pieces and skins and meats and bones out. Alright, so now that we have got that strained, and you saw that I was using the big strainer for the bigger pieces. Well, then afterwards, my husband helped me with this because it was pretty heavy. But we used the mesh strainer, which has the smaller holes to get all the smaller pieces. And Carmen wants to say hi. Say hello. So I want to show you this beautiful broth. Look at that color. So yes, beautiful broth, and there is a lot of it. So what we're doing now is going to let this cool down to room temperature, and then we will place it in the refrigerator, because right now this still has fat in it, and you do not want fat in when you're canning, because it can go rancid. If there's a little bit in there, it won't make a difference. But if you can get most of it out, that's the best way to do it. So we're going to let this go to room temperature, and then we're going to put it in the refrigerator for at least 5 hours, up to 24 hours. And then we will be canning it up. Now I have some questions of why go through all that just to make that broth? Well, you get a lot of nutrients. With the bone broth, you get the collagen from the bone, and it is very good for joint health, digestive health, and you know what you're getting. You know what's in it. You don't have any other added ingredients with all those long words that you can't say, and it's all natural. So that's where we're at this point. We're going to go ahead and continue letting this cool down before we remove it to the refrigerator, and then I'll show you how to remove the fat. Alright, so our chicken broth has now cooled down. You want to say hi? Say hello. Carmen's joining me this morning on this adventure. So now, I'm going to show you how the fat has risen to the top. See that? We're going to scoop all that up as gently as possible. Excuse me. So, at this point, you can save the fat and put it in your freezer until you get enough to render it. And then when you render it, you can actually make lard from this fat, which is something that a lot of people like to do. I won't be doing that with this fat today, just because I think I have enough. But yeah, you can see it's kind of breaking up. But all that delicious broth is underneath there, and it is ready to start canning. I'm going to reheat it first, because when you're canning, you want to, if you're going to have hot jars, you want to make sure that you have hot liquid, or whatever you're putting in it is hot as well, so that you don't crack the glass. And we are going to be going a different method with this chicken broth. And I know you're not supposed to do it that way. I can hear it now. But I'm a canning rebel, so I'm going to do it my way. But it also teaches self-reliance. You know, a lot of people say you have to pressure can broth, meats, all that good stuff. And if you have an electric can or a pressure canner, by all means, go ahead and do it. And I do have one, but for the sake of this video and showing some self-reliance, I'm going to be water bathing. It takes a longer time, yes. But I believe it'll be worth it in the end. So I'm going to go ahead and continue getting the rest of this fat out and get the broth on the stove. Right. So I have my jars in the dishwasher on the highest setting to be washed and sterilized. I have my lids and rings and the water warming up. And then I have my broth in 2 pans in the back because this is probably going to take at least 2 settings of water bathing. Now before you jump all over me, that's not USDA, blah, 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 blah. I understand. And for those of you that don't feel comfortable with water bathing chicken broth, I understand that as well. I will put a description down in the link below to show you the pressure, canning guide, times, all that. But I want you to think about something before you jump on here and say, I'm not doing it right. Think about your grandmothers and your great-grandmothers before pressure canners came out. What did they do? They water bathed or open kettled everything. And they lived long, happy lives. Well, I sure hope so. But I'm going to be water bathing this for 3 hours. That is the recommended time for meat products. Because this is a meat-based product, I am going to be water bathing for 3 hours. I also added the apple cider vinegar to bring the acidity level up. And, sorry, Carmen has got me distracted here. But I've seen this done, and it has worked tremendously. Now, it does take a lot of time. A lot longer than what a pressure canner does. And the pressure canners do make things more convenient. And they are very nice to have. But like I said earlier, for the sake of this video, as self-reliance, what would you do if there was no electricity? Because then your pressure canner is not going to work. So there's always a good way to know another alternative to canning what you need to can to preserve for your family. So this is just another way, and I'm going to show you that today. Hopefully you'll follow along and you'll learn something. Thank you so much for watching. Be ready to get this done, and we'll be back in just a few short minutes when this is ready to get going. Alright guys, so I didn't mean to come off harsh about the pressure canning versus water bathing. I just wanted to educate you that there are alternative ways to do this. And if you do have concerns, if you do not have an electric or a pressure canner, I should say, and you want to try the water bathing method, if you have concerns, when you go to use your broth, put it in a pan and boil it for 10 minutes. If you bring it to a rolling boil for 10 minutes, if there's any chance of botulism, it will kill it. That way you're not have to worry about hurting anyone in your family. I don't have that concern, but some people will. And if you do, like I said, just put it in a pan, let it boil for 10 minutes, and then you kill any kind of bacteria that you will see. As long as your jars are sealed, you're perfectly fine. But you'll also know when you open it, it will have a foul smell, that you just are like, no, I'm not eating that. And you know that that's not a good one. But that's fine. Smell will lead you to your way. And like I said, 10 minutes, boil it before you use it, and you won't have any botulism or any other bacteria in your food. Alright, y'all, let's get this party started. The jars have been sanitized. They are hot, and I'm going to keep them in the dishwasher so that they can stay hot. We're going to be pulling out 2 at a time, and I'll show you why. But let's go ahead and get this broth over to the canning station. Alright. You can see the broth is ready to go. And I'm going to have a pan of hot water put on the stove so that it can start boiling. Now remember, when you're water bathing this, the reason you have that boiling water is so that you can keep the water above at least an inch. I usually do 2 if I can, above the jars. And we're going to go ahead and pull out these jars and steam up my glasses. Whew, that is some hot stuff. Let's take that off there. We'll pull out a jar, and then I'm going to pull out another jar. Close that up, keep that heat in there. Alright, so at this point, I'm going to add some lemon juice. That will bring up your acidity level for your water bathing. So I'm going to add 1 tablespoon in each jar. And note, the common question is, will that change your flavor? It will not. But it will bring up your acidity level that you need to water bath. You're going to put your, well, I like this handy little dandy funnel with the measurements, and you're going to go to 1 inch headspace, which is also this part of the jar. So if you don't have one of these, you know this is your 1 inch headspace. Take my ladle, I'm going to fill up this first jar. One inch headspace. And we're going to move this over to the next jar. And then I have vinegar. Just plain white vinegar in here. And then you get a clean cloth, dip it in there, and wipe your rims. That will help with your sealing. In case any juice had gotten onto here, any contaminants. Then we're going to get the lid. Place it on the jar. And a ring. Now this here is very important. You do not want to use your wrist to turn the rings on. Just fingertip grip. So you're going to go ahead and put this on and just tighten with your fingers. Don't use your wrist, just your fingers. This jar is ready to go over to the water bath canner. Bring you over here. Sorry that that's blocking you. Hold on 1 second. And we're going to put this in. We're going to start in the middle and then work around. The middle will keep it more stable for you. Then you'll go back. You'll get another jar out. then ladle into your next jar. People ask, why is it so important with the headspace? You want to make sure that you give your contents that's in your jar enough space to siphon any extra space needed there. Move this over here. Wipe our jar again, the rims. And get our ring. Okay. Again, finger tight only. And take this on over. So I'm going to go ahead and finish filling up these jars to get my water bath canner full, and I'll bring you back and show you what's next. So, out of this canning, we're going to have 7 jars that will be ready to be lowered down, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. Very gently, because it is heavy and this water is very hot. And right now the water is exactly where we need it to be. So I'm going to turn this up. And once it gets to a rolling boil, got the lid on. Once it comes to a rolling boil, I will set the timer for 3 hours. Alright, so it is at a complete rolling boil, and I have set the timer for 3 hours. Now, the water that's over here boiling, I will keep it boiling through that whole process, so that if my water in my canner goes down and it's not reaching the level that it needs to be, which is 1 inch at least, I'm going to keep it at 2. I'll come periodically and check it, and as I see needed, I'll add more boiling water to it, so it'll keep the temperature at the same level. Alright, we got less than 10 seconds. Once that beeps, we will be turning the water bath canner down to very, very low. There's that. Done with the timer. Now we're going to turn this down on very, very low. And we are going to vent. You just want to vent this for about 5 minutes to let some of that out. And then after the 5 minutes, I will take the lid completely off and let it sit for an additional 5 minutes before we pull our jars out. Alright, excuse me. So it's been 10 minutes, and I want to turn you around here so you can see I'm not going to touch the jars because they are still extremely hot.
Baby, come up.
Now you'll see that there is like a chalky look on them. That's just from being in the water bath for the 3 hours. You can clean that up by just using vinegar water. Once everything gets cooled down and wiping it off, it'll wipe right off. But that's how you do it. We have 7 pints of bone broth that is now going to be used for ourselves and our future meals. And in each one of these pints, there's 2 cups of broth. So if you go to make this recipe, you'll know that 2 cups of broth fits in each pint. so that you can plan for any kind of recipes that you have in the future. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know this is a longer video than usual, but I wanted to go step by step to help all of you understand and know how to do this. Like I said, this is self-reliance, and in the future, if anything should happen, you'll know how to do this. Hopefully nothing will happen and everything will be okay, but with the economy the way it is today, there's no guarantee to anything. So, thank you again. Excuse me. I appreciate you. God bless you. And remember, share, share, share. Well, I know that we already said goodbye, but someone else didn't get to say goodbye. So, what do you want to say? Say bye.
Hi.
Yeah, say share, share, share.
Are you Dory?
Yeah.
Is Sissy?
Yeah, you talking about the doggy. Can you say bye?
Easy.
Bye-bye.
Right.
Yeah. Hit the like and subscribe button and the notification bell. Again, thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.